Good morning, welcome to Breakfast with Chris Mason and Nina Warhurst.
Our headlines today: millions of people move into stricter COVID restrictions as hundreds try to leave London before the rules kicked in.
Christmas plans are ruined as the relaxation of rules is severely scaled back. Millions in Tier 4 are told they can't mix with other households at all.
It is with a very heavy heart, I must tell you, we cannot continue with Christmas as planned.
And whilst all of us will see sunshine at times today, watch out for some dark, looming clouds. There could be some big showers on their way. Details on that and your full Christmas week forecast here on Breakfast.
Good morning to you. It's just gone 8 o'clock, Sunday the 20th of December. Our top story: millions of people in England and Wales are waking up to new lockdown restrictions.
At midnight, London and large parts of the southeast of England were put into a new category of Tier 4 with an order to stay at home where possible. Similar restrictions came into force for all of Wales.
The announcements were made as plans to relax restrictions over Christmas were reduced. Our political correspondent Nick Eardley reports.
London last night as some made a last-minute journey before lockdown started. But there won't be the usual Christmas getaway this year. Significant restrictions are now in place in large parts of England and in the whole of Wales. They're coming in Scotland. And for millions, Christmas visits will be considerably shortened or cancelled altogether. For Leslie Nelson, who has terminal cancer, that means she won't be able to spend time with her sister.
Literally, I'd sat in my chair in floods of tears and messaging my family, what we're going to do. It just seems so unfair for somebody like me. I'm terminally ill. I won't be here next Christmas. People can think, OK, that's all right, we'll celebrate Christmas in the summer. I don't know if I'm going to be here in the summer. My sister's going to be sitting at home by herself, 100 miles away. And her presents are under the tree.
17 million people in England are back in lockdown. In London, the east and southeast of England, people are being urged to stay at home. Non-essential shops are closed. Plans to allow Christmas bubbles have been cancelled. In the rest of England and in Scotland and in Wales, Christmas is being cut back significantly. Instead of meeting for 5 days, Christmas bubbles will only be allowed for one, Christmas Day itself.
It is with a very heavy heart, I must tell you, we cannot continue with Christmas as planned. In England, those living in Tier 4 areas should not mix with anyone outside their own household at Christmas, though support bubbles will remain in place for those at particular risk of loneliness or isolation.
In Wales, lockdown was brought forward and came in at midnight. Nicola Sturgeon has said nobody should travel to Scotland from the rest of the UK and that she'll bring in a lockdown on the mainland from Boxing Day.
It makes me want to cry, as I'm sure listening to it will make many of you want to cry, because I know how harsh this sounds. I know how unfair it is, but this virus is unfair.
The changes will come as a blow to many. The end of this tough year is going to be no easier. But politicians and scientists believe the risk is just too great. Nick Eardley, BBC News, Westminster.
Let's go to our political correspondent, Jessica Parker. Jess, many arguing this morning it would not have come to this had the government locked down London and the South East sooner.
Yeah, I mean, there is certainly some criticism facing Boris Johnson and the government this morning. And of course, it was only a few days ago when Boris Johnson was challenged as to whether he did need to go further. He said he thought it would be inhuman to cancel Christmas. And here we are just a few days later, major curbs have been announced. And major curbs, of course, announced or brought forward in Wales and Scotland as well. The Prime Minister's argument last night was that as the virus changes, so does our defence against the virus need to change too. But for all of the political leaders, the timing of this is incredibly difficult. We were just days from those original Christmas bubbles beginning to kick in. And of course, many people will have made their plans. And of course, many people as well will now be worried about this new variant of the virus. What we're given to understand, of course, is that, yes, it's more infectious, but there's not evidence to suggest that it causes a significant more disease, for example. So I think people are digesting all that news as well. In terms of the politics of this, the Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, He suggested last night that Boris Johnson had been indecisive. Labour had called for tougher measures earlier in the week. And I think as well, the Prime Minister will face some resistance and criticism from his own backbenchers. Some Conservative MPs who are saying that they think this cycle of restrictions and lockdowns hasn't worked in actually tackling the transmission of the virus. And there are even suggestions that Parliament should be recalled from its Christmas break in order for MPs to have a chance to debate and vote on these issues. But look, I really think, politics aside this morning, the truth is millions of people across the UK are waking up, digesting the news that came overnight, and of course, adjusting again to a difficult new reality.
Absolutely, Jess. Lots of conversations with families this morning. Thank you.
Let's bring Andy Moore into the conversation. Andy's our correspondent on Oxford Street in central London. Morning to you, Andy. There's obvious economic repercussions as well, aren't there? Because for so many people and for so many businesses, today and the coming days would have been hugely important in trying to recover lost ground economically, and yet in Tier 4, so many shops will be shut.
That's right. I mean, yesterday was probably incredibly busy here. Well, in fact, it was incredibly busy here. Today, it will be virtually deserted. And as you say, the businesses that were looking forward to the most lucrative few days of the year, they will be losing billions of pounds in those areas in Tier 4 and in Wales where they have to shut down. The organisation that represents a lot of the shops here said it was catastrophic for business. They're calling for more government help. The CBI said it was a kick in the teeth. What's been the reaction of people here in London? Well, the Chief Medical Officer, Chris Whitty, last night was asked about people who were thinking of packing their bags and heading out of town before the restrictions came into force. His advice was to unpack those bags, but some people didn't hear that advice or didn't heed it. Some very busy scenes at London train stations last night. Seats on trains were selling out within a few hours. Very difficult to social distance on those crowded trains. So big changes here in the capital. And the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, was speaking to Breakfast a short time ago.
My message to anybody watching this today in London and the South East is you can't leave our area now because it'd be breaking the rules. But even if you could, please don't. Keep it within London, follow the rules, and make sure let's get on top of this.
And what's been the reaction for people? What do they think of these new restrictions? Well, interesting, an opinion poll gave a snapshot of opinion yesterday, carried out after the press conference. More than 70% of people said they agreed that some parts of the country should go into Tier 4 regulations. 78% of people, the vast majority, said they would have to change their plans for Christmas. But only 11% said they intended to break the regulations. Chris?
Thanks, Andy.
Next, the Dutch government has banned passenger flights between the UK and the Netherlands as of 6 o'clock this morning because of the new variant of the virus. It's also revealed that the same strain of the infection was found in the Netherlands earlier this month and is investigating the origins of that case. Additional travel restrictions may be put in place on trains and ferries between the two countries.
A UK government source has said there'll be no post-Brexit trade deal with the European Union unless there is a substantial shift from Brussels in the coming days. It's understood there's likely to be a decision before Christmas about whether or not to continue the talks. They remain stuck on issues around fishing and subsidies. It is now less than 2 weeks until the transition period ends.
See the headlines as they happen and watch BBC News live in the app and get the full story with bbc.co.uk/news. Follow the story for all the latest with BBC News.